Welcome to the Six Hats podcast, where I, Dr. Shami, a lifestyle and nutritional medicine family doctor, will talk about how women strive to find balance each day by juggling their six roles, being a woman, mother, daughter, partner, business owner, and professional. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Six Hats podcast. And I'm so excited to have Isabella Ferguson join us today. Now, she's a former lawyer turned counsellor and coach, specialising in alcohol, stress management, and burnout. She's also the co-host of the Not Drinking Today podcast and host of the De-Stress for Success podcast. Now, as a former lawyer suffering overwhelm and stress, and a mum who struggled to find balance between career and a young family, she needed to make changes. So she's walked the talk and knows what it feels like when alcohol has just become too much and affecting your health. Now, she continues to have a great social life full of laughter and fulfillment without giving alcohol a thought. So welcome, Isabella.
Thank you, Dr. Shami. I'm so happy to be on here.
So I always love telling stories because there's so much value in learning from other people's experiences. And I think what I find is you know that you're not alone and you know that you're not isolated. There are solutions out there and things can change. And what I find is when you hear stories of change and success, you feel hope. It's giving hope to so many women and men who may think, is this permanent? And that's what I see in clinic. They feel it's permanent of how they feel, but you can feel different. So first of all, I'd love to dive into your journey as well. I think there's so much value in that. So I want to take you right back when you were a busy lawyer and mom. And what was life like?
Oh, gosh. Look, I think I've always operated with a bit of low-level anxiety, and the adrenaline kind of fueled me to get through my life as being a litigation lawyer. When the kids came along, I noticed I really felt quite stretched. So I was juggling it all, spinning all the plates, trying to drop the kids off at school. One had separation anxiety, and then try and focus on work. So I was certainly trying to just fit everything into my day. So lots of exercise, lots of hard work, lots of parenting, and then coming home and doing my master's. So I was just trying to jam everything into one small period of time. And yeah, it was no wonder really that I ended up drinking more and more and more in the evenings to cope.
And if you look, what was it about alcohol that made it so easy to reach out for?
Well, I think the patterns were set up quite young. So I started drinking when I was 14. Well, that was my first taste of alcohol. And then at parties regularly throughout high school. It was just our group as we grew up in Canberra. But regularly drinking to fit in, to socialise, and for confidence throughout university and as a lawyer, then to de-stress. I once heard Anne Dowsett-Johnson, as she's the author of this amazing book, Drink, say, it is the modern women's steroid. It allows you to do the heavy lifting and transition from work life to parent life to social life. So it's just the lubrication that kind of fuels the energy to keep you going. And yeah, it does allow you to spin all the plates in the air until it all comes crashing down.
We're going to step into that, but I'd love to go deeper. And it's so interesting you say that because conversations with so many of my guests, and we do talk about alcohol and how it's sort of socially accepted and almost you're excluded from your tribe if you didn't drink. So there's a lot of pressure, whether it's year 12, ECE, moving on to university, looking at even the professional network, how easy it is to say, yeah, I'll have another glass because everyone is doing that. And you may have a business meeting, you've got clients, you've got colleagues, you've got your peers, and it's been socially accepted and almost ostracized if you didn't drink. So it takes a lot of courage to go, not for me tonight. So I can see how it's so easy because it's sort of a sign of being part of the tribe. Did you notice that? Is that something that you notice, or because it was that socially accepted thing that it...
Yeah, I think I just loved drinking so much. I never felt pressured to drink. I was always there, willing and happy to fill up the glass. So I think the source of it was probably feeling anxious and lacking confidence. So for me, as soon as I had that glass, I sort of got my voice and my opinions. So it was very much attached with that. That said, because everybody else was drinking and it was all part of the networking, the debriefing of being a lawyer, and, that sort of drinking club becomes your family when you're young. Because everyone was doing it, it was almost a green light to keep going. No one was putting the brakes on. No one was questioning the behavior. And there was no education, of course, in those days in the law firm. So we were all just egging each other on. It was just part of everything we did. So I like to think of myself as probably being a grey area drinker, highly functional, just like everybody else for 20 years. But it was when I stopped being a lawyer and I went home to be a stay-at-home mum. So I suffered burnout and went home that I hit the flashing red light zone where the drinking got risky and dangerous at that point.
Which is a great time to move on to that question of, when did you notice alcohol was a problem? What did you mean by risky and dangerous?
Well, I threw myself into mummy wine culture and just started drinking probably at, lunchtime gatherings and then dinners. And then I started to drink a little bit before those gatherings by myself to ease social anxiety. And then home alone afterwards again by myself. So I probably was about 44 when I just started Googling, how do I stop drinking? How do I know if I have a problem? Because I was starting to drink to feel normal and I was starting to get anxious if I didn't have a bottle of wine at home. So I became very fixated on alcohol. And I was certainly then noticing I was starting to drink a lot more than my peers and my friends. And I just felt very trapped at that point. I didn't know what to do. Look, I had a massive fall from grace. So not many people do lots of people do have a rock bottom. And I'd certainly say the message is don't wait to get to that point to stop drinking by any means. But I did. So one day I did drink way too much, so much so that it frightened my husband, poor man, and he didn't know what to do. I couldn't communicate. And so he took me to the hospital. So I had to detox. I had to take up a bed of somebody else that probably needed it in emergency. It was so embarrassing. But there was this amazing doctor, this beautiful woman who just said, this is really dangerous. You owe it to yourself to sort it out. You owe it to your family. And so she said, I'm going to put you on a ward until you can go straight from hospital to a treatment clinic. So she didn't want me to go home and sort of get stuck back into the cycle. I think it was the first time it had happened to me, but she could tell that it was now, there was a fork in the road. So from there, I went to the Byron Bay Treatment Centre and 4 weeks in rehab and all the anxiety, the stigma associated with that. But it was surrendering to this process of knowing I can't do this alone. This is a problem. Let's get help.
That's incredible, incredible story. I'd love to go back to the point where you started Googling, when is alcohol too much? What was the first sign that you felt was happening in your life?
Oh, I think I was starting to drink, say, 2 or 3 glasses of wine, if not more, before my husband came home.
Right. Right.
And he would walk in the door by that, and he'd come home late. So dinner, kids had been bathed, kids were put to bed, and he'd be like, Oi, what are you doing here? That's you've had a few too many. And it became a common theme. So it was starting to put a lot of pressure on my relationship. I could see that he was concerned. And so that was one big reason. And also I was starting to look really crap. I just looked bloated. I was putting on weight. My eyes and my skin looked awful. And my tolerance. So I just wasn't even really feeling the effects. I was starting to get anxious. That's right. Because this was like nearly 4 years ago now. Starting to get really anxious and fatigued. So I knew that for all the wellness goals that I aspired to, all my values of living quite authentically and healthily were just not aligning with this lifestyle. Oh, and I think another big red flag was that I was hiding what I was drinking from my partner. So I started to feel really guilty and shamed by it because he was picking up on it, but I didn't want anyone to come in between me and my wine. So I'd have a glass of wine, I'd be hiding it in the pantry. And then with that behavior comes hiding a bottle, putting it out in the recycling. You turn into a person who is a liar, and that is just, complete opposite of who you really are. So a few red flags there. I'd say many red flags there. Pick your red flag.
Yeah, and it's so insightful because I'm sure people can relate to that. Was Byron a rehab center the first step, or did you take any steps before that?
Oh, I tried all my own personal moderation goals, but nothing that was, a proper first step. I hadn't got counselling, hadn't read a book, hadn't looked at a podcast. So none of that because I hadn't anticipated ever breaking up with alcohol. So it was the first step, well and truly.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And that's what you're passionate about now, just advising a lot of people to go, it doesn't have to reach rock bottom. It doesn't have to go that far. And whether it is looking at, am I drinking too much? What would you advise listeners of what the first step is? Because I often say when I see patients, it's not the first thing they bring up. And I understand because there's a lot of shame, guilt, embarrassment surrounding it. And it's building that trust with your healthcare practitioner to have that conversation. And I think it's the right time. But what can they do at home to actually say, am I drinking too much? What can I do? Seek help. And whether it's like one of your podcasts, perhaps, or reading a book.
I think if you're hitting red flags, so you're setting moderation goals and failing them, that's a red flag. If you're hiding a glass, that's a red flag. If it's interfering in relationships, your career, your personal life, your health goals, red flag. It could be 2 glasses a night for you, and that's too much. But if you can't go, I'd say for a good 6-week period, alcohol free, and you're white knuckling it and it's hard, then maybe you need to do something different. And that point of difference can look very different for everybody. So jump onto the Not Drinking Today podcast. It's a good starter because you get to hear everybody's stories. You get to hear what their red flags were. How did they break up with alcohol? What worked, what didn't? So kind of skill up on alcohol, the science of what it does to your bodies. So you could read This Naked Mind by Annie Grace as well.
Love that book. Yeah.
Love that book.
Great.
So many quit lit books out there. And you're just then starting to learn about why it is you think you like to drink. Then I'd say think about, there's lots of online 6-week courses there that can help you do a mindset shift as well, together with an extended period of alcohol-free time. Reach out to a counsellor or a coach if you need to. So even just booking, most coaches and counsellors have a 30-minute consult free, no obligation, confidential button on their site. Don't hesitate to find somebody and just have a 30-minute chat with them. And it might be the first conversation that you have with somebody that you're just saying, hey, I'm drinking too much. What do I do? Once you've said those words out loud, that awareness is the first step to change. And this changing that one thing, alcohol can have such profound changes of your life for the better, and nothing lost in drinking less. Absolutely nothing lost.
I love your tips because often it takes a lot of courage to make that appointment, maybe with a doctor, take that next step. And even having that conversation with a healthcare professional takes a lot of courage because it is admitting to something that you may not be comfortable admitting. So I love that there's so many podcasts, resources, getting onto a coach, taking that first step where you can actually do it in the comfort of your own home. And you don't have to go anywhere. You can comfort off your own space. You don't even have to tell anyone. No one needs to know. And I think that's really important as you go on that journey. Did you have any fears of stopping alcohol? I know you went through that 1-month detox, but was there any fear surrounding that?
All the fears, Dr. Shami, all the fears. Honestly, the fear that my friends wouldn't want to hang out with me, the fear that I wouldn't be able to ever socialize, the anxiety of having all the shame of being the woman that went to rehab, not being able to relax, not being able to go on holidays. Look, I don't think there was one fear that I didn't have. And I think most Australians do have massive, how can I possibly fit in my social group?
Do that. How did you do that? What did you do?
Yeah, it's the whole process of, I know it's sort of a bit of a catchphrase at the moment, but reframing your subconscious beliefs around alcohol. So really unpicking what my beliefs were. Why did I believe I needed alcohol to fit in? Why did I believe I need alcohol to be funnier and to connect? And then really shining a light on that and looking at all the evidence against that thought, and of which there were many, and then making the decision, well, what's the truer belief? And if you look at it all that way microscopically, the truer belief is I actually don't need alcohol. Everything that I seek alcohol for actually makes that thing worse. And then slowly, by just doing that reframing cognitive work, I ended up believing it. And when you believe it, it takes away the desire for it. So yeah, it took a lot of time to actually then get out and in bite-sized bits socialize, hang out with my good friends, change the way we socialize to begin with, go walking, hiking, kayaking, and then slowly doing lunches and dinners, bring out the mocktails, leave early, use all the tactics that we have, and then slowly you learn through action, your brain, your body, you learn you can socialize, and you can socialize a heck of a lot better without alcohol.
That's incredible. How long did that take to have the confidence to socialize with your group of friends?
Well, I actually went into rehab in February of 2020. So I came out on the 1st of March during COVID lockdown.
Perfect
So
timing.
it's probably a blessing. So I didn't really have to, I just had Zoom parties for the first little patch of time. I had a really good excuse not to have to throw myself into the social scene. I just probably say I didn't stop socializing. It was hard at the beginning, there is no doubt. But within 3 months, I was out and about and feeling pretty good socializing. There was always social firsts that stressed me out. Your first sober concert or wedding, things like that. But 6 months, well and truly on my way. 12 months, I just turned up with my alcohol-free options. Everyone knew I wasn't drinking. By that stage as well, you're starting to look good and feel good, and the whole alcohol-free life is contagious.
Amazing.
Everybody is starting to drink less. That's what I found anyway.
You almost get addicted to healthy living.
You do.
And that's what I hear in my patients. I'm addicted to this healthy living. This is awesome.
Yes.
So awesome. That has been so insightful and so inspiring, Isabella. And I think it's going to really help many, many listeners to go, oh, let's just reassess what's happening now. It doesn't have to reach rock bottom. There's so much you can do. And there is actually a lot of support out there. It doesn't have to be what everyone thinks about immediately, which is AA. It doesn't have to be that at all. There's so many alternatives now. And as a result, there's alternatives that you can find which works for you. And that's really, really important. So before we let you go, Isabella, where can people find you? Because I know you provide coaching as well.
Yes. My website, isabellaferguson.com.au. Instagram, what is that? Alcohol and Stress with Isabella. And honestly, just as a parting comment, I would just say the more people that can say, yeah, I drank too much at one point in my life. Now I don't. Life is so much better. Let's talk. Let's talk about it. It doesn't have to be shameful. It's the stigma.
I agree.
Thank you so much for having me on.
That's amazing. Thank you, Isabella. Remember that this is general advice only. Please see your healthcare professional for more information. So what's your take-home message today? Remember, it's all about progress and not perfection. And are you suffering from stress? Visit the Usawa Learning Hub on usawa.com.au for more resources on how to de-stress, re-energize, and reclaim your health. Enjoy the journey.